Welcome to Open Agenda. I'm your host, Joe White. In the studio this week is Dr. Joe Venosa and Mr. Mike Goldberg. Thanks for coming out, gentlemen.
Glad to be here.
Thank you.
So the first thing we need to tackle is this the kennel bill that the county council passed at the February 4th meeting. There has been a lot of public pushback, and the county executive has had several public comments regarding this. Joe, you've been at the work sessions. Why did the council even think to take this up?
Well, this has been an ongoing concern, particularly for a property owner, or at least the property owner and others adjacent to his property in the north part of the county toward Delmar. And there had been a lot of concerns about safety, about lack of upkeep, and they have come before the county several times trying to remedy the situation. So I think this was the nucleus of what became this piece of legislation.
Well, Mike, you've heard these folks. I mean, many of them are from Sharptown. They talked about the noise. I mean, you had a chance to listen to these folks in the public comments part of the county council meetings. What's been the sense you've gotten from these private citizens?
Well, I think that their concerns are very legitimate. The kennel owner, in this case, has been cited multiple times by code enforcement and has actually been fined, but has somehow found a way to work around the existing codes to continue operations. So I think it was very legitimate for them to try to take some action and to seek some kind of relief from the county government.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the code enforcement violations. Part of the problem is that this kennel, although it is operating as a kennel, they are not selling the dogs in Maryland. They're actually taking them into Delaware.
To Delaware, yeah.
And that has muddied these waters very much, and very purposely, I'm sure. When you hear folks talk about their property values, I know this rings close with you, but it's not as if the county council heard this one week and then picked it up the very next week, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. They had prior work sessions on it. The council was aware, the county executive was aware, but the county executive, the office of the county executive, wasn't particularly involved in seeking a resolution.
Well, Joe, I mean, wasn't the county's attorney that works for the executive office? They were part of drafting this legislation, right? And at these work sessions.
Yeah, that's what's so strange about this sort of recent drama, if you want to call it that, is there have been multiple points in this process where the county executive's office was fully involved, had personnel, staff, lawyers in the room working on it. The executive, it's my understanding, watches the council meetings still. And at no point had they expressed concern.
Well, I think one of the areas, and I've listened to what our current county executives had to say. The county council did make 2 amendments to this bill very at the last minute, and quite frankly, they're a mistake, right? We've talked to our sources within the county council, and they're looking to rectify this. They even gave themselves a look back after 1 year. But what at the public hearing, folks, did anybody speak out against this bill?
No, and this is again the broader context. Is there were public notices, there was obviously a public hearing about it, and there was no discernible concern by existing kennel owners that, from what I saw, had ever been brought up.
And even in the prior work sessions, apparently no kennel owners appeared to testify or to express their concerns. It just wasn't on their radar. Perhaps they weren't aware, but nonetheless they weren't there.
And ultimately, that's our goal. Is we want folks just to be more engaged, not necessarily to agree with our stance on whether something's right or wrong, but to come and see this for themselves and make their voices heard. Since the bill has passed, we've come to know that this 1,000-foot amendment that was added on the bill at the last minute, it would essentially put out of business in 3 years all the kennel owners we currently have, right?
I believe so. You have to keep in mind that this bill was actually drafted by the county attorney, who reports directly to the county executive, in cooperation with planning and zoning. They drafted the base bill that was voted on. Then at the last minute, they called an audible during the county council meeting to introduce 2 amendments. One was to create a sunset of 3 years. Basically, the sunset means you're grandfathered in for 3 years, but after that, you have to come into compliance.
Which would be impossible.
It would be impossible, and be very hard to plan for the future. Or if you needed to get funding from a bank funding in order to expand, they're not going to give you that.
No.
If they know that you're going to be in violation of code. And then the second part of that amendment was to make the setback from the property line 1,000 feet. It was really completely arbitrary, and in my mind, the real issue there is how much attenuated sound actually reaches the adjacent properties. It's not so much the distance, but how much sound, disruptive sound, is actually reaching them.
Well, at the end of the day, this was a mistake. I mean, the county council should not
No doubt.
have changed this in a very arbitrary way. In fact, they did not even invite Tracy Taylor Greene back to the table to give her feedback. And I would tell you, I think this is where they messed up, Joe. I think that they had all the munitions put in place to hear the public, have work sessions, have a public hearing. They got to the point where it was time to vote. And it just seemed like a good idea, but a 1,000 feet setback would require 93 acres of land. And I think if had anybody done the math, it would have seemed like a poor idea, right?
Well, I think you could make it, and again, obviously I'm not on the council, and I was not involved in those meetings, but you could make the argument that it's one of those things where it sounds better than what it is, right? 1,000 feet could very well be arbitrary. 200 feet could be arbitrary in the sense of how it comes out, but then, as you said, Mike, what that actually means for the property owner, the business. Does it actually affect issues of how the sound travels? That's where you actually got to get
of course.
a handle on the number.
But even though Ms. Taylor Greene was not called back up, Andrew Illuminati, the county attorney, was there, as well as a representative from planning and zoning. And at the time when these amendments were brought up, they did not articulate that they had any problem with it. And furthermore, the county executive herself was in the government office building at this time, but she was not in the council chambers. If they had an issue at that time, it would have been very helpful and created more of a cooperative spirit in drafting a final bill had they simply spoken up. They did not care, or they didn't, more than likely, they just didn't recognize the problem.
Mike, I want to take a break, but when we come back, I actually want to talk about the role the executive's playing now. What's the future of this? Because I think as small business owner myself, I'm very concerned about other small business owners, as I know both of you are. They're going to need to have their chance, but where is the process now? So why don't we take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about that.
Sounds good.
Great.
So stay with us. After the break, we'll actually check in where the county executive's possible veto, as well as the choices that the county council may have to rectify the situation. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Open Agenda. I'm Joe White. In the studio is Joe Venosa and Mr. Mike Goldberg. Thanks for coming out, gentlemen.
Still here.
Thanks for not leaving, right? So, just this past week, through a Facebook Live video, the current county executive said she plans to veto this bill. She's also said on other social media platforms that she's actually not going to veto the bill now. She's encouraging folks to come and probably just give the county council a piece of their mind, and quite honestly, they deserve that.
They probably have it coming to them.
Yeah, but she has made it fairly clear that she is going to eventually veto this, and then they would have to consider it with a veto override, which would seem unlikely given the pushback. But why do you think she is so concerned about this legislation, and why now? Joe, why don't you take that? Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of reasons, but I think there's specifically 18,000 reasons that you could sort of ponder as to why. Because her largest campaign contributor, Mr. J.C. Richardson, would theoretically have a lot to lose in this proposed legislation.
Okay.
Now, again, this is.
I mean, he still deserves protection too, right?
Absolutely.
Just like everybody else.
Absolutely. I guess the question becomes, and this is a hypothetical, but it would be great for the executive or anybody else to ponder this, is would a regular, quote-unquote, kennel owner or a citizen who's not a campaign contributor, if they had made that same series of concerns known to the executive, would this massive media PR frenzy the last couple of days that we've seen, would that have happened in the same way?
Well, Mike, you would agree that a small business owner like Delmarva Canine, they deserve that protection.
Well,
I mean,
absolutely, absolutely. And I think that the county council recognizes that. From conversations I've had since with members of the council, they know that this was an error. Their intentions were good, but this was the wrong solution. And I firmly believe that they are seeking other solutions to this problem. And it's a legitimate problem that will be a win-win for everybody. But on the other hand, I also believe that if not for the benefit to a particular campaign contributor, that this very well, based on experience, this very well may not have been on the county executive's radar.
And I think therein lies two things can be true at the same time, right?
Sure.
The bill itself, right, while maybe well-intentioned, has this real problem within it. But on the other hand, would any of this have been an issue had that particular person?
Well, let's go through some other examples.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
so if we're going to say that
Yeah,
the attention comes from a donor,
Yeah.
Let's talk about the safari at the quarry in Shadow Hills.
Oh,
right?
do we have to?
Yes. Yep.
Speaking of property values,
So, again, there was noise concerns, no public knowledge, and at the same time, although the residents of that neighborhood came and voiced their opinion to the county council, they did not actually have the same platform with the county executive, right?
No, the concerns fell on deaf ears. And also keep in mind that I prepared a 12-page abstract of that contract and sent it by certified mail to the county executive so that it would be very clear what the problems are. And abstracting contracts is something I spent 35 years of my professional life doing it. I know contracts pretty darn well. Fell on deaf ears. She did not heed any of the warnings. I warned that this is more than likely going to lose money for the county, in addition to disrupting the quiet enjoyment of our homes and our property values. When you have recurring disruptive events that are taking place on adjacent land, you can bet your bottom dollar that this does impact your land values.
Well, let's take another example, Joe. The tipping fees at the dump. I mean, this came directly from the county executive's proposed budget.
Yeah.
Again, the county council, they have to approve the budget.
Sure.
There are public hearings for the budget. We were at the public hearings for the budget. But the tipping fees were not discussed in the public forum, similar to this 1,000 feet setback for kennels.
Right.
But the onus was on both branches at that point, and you saw them get together and work. Are we seeing a situation where the county executive's lack of ability to kind of stay in those meetings and be a part of that conversation, is that affecting the rest of us in this county?
I think it is, because when you have an executive branch of government that only has certain, what I would consider special interests as the motivating factor, it means that the scope of attention is going to be limited, right? Meaning the things that might not have a financial benefit or political benefit still deserve attention. And when they're not being attended to, you have a real imbalance, not just of how government works, but you have a real potential for some chaos, because what it means is that a whole branch of government is only very narrowly examining things in its self-interest. So
in one respect, and these kennel owners are going to come theoretically to this next council meeting, which is on February 18th. It's a 10 a.m. meeting to petition their government, similar to the way the residents of Shadow Hills did, similar to the trash collecting companies. But in some instances, you're given a platform and a voice, and some you aren't. And then I think this is where you made your point early on, right?
Right. And again, I think it would be it's unfortunate. It's kind of sad, I guess you could say, that the executive doesn't have open office hours for regular citizens. The mayor of Salisbury, right, has a Meet the Mayor session once a month. Obviously, the city council and the county council, as part of their institution, have it. nothing prevents the executive office from having that, but that's not going to happen.
She makes herself inaccessible. And just a great example, going back to Safari at the Quarry,
Yeah.
after sending her, the county executive, this lengthy list of grievances with respect to the contract for Safari at the Quarry, the response was, do not contact me again, direct all future correspondence through the county attorney. I'm sorry, if you can't take some heat from your constituents, and if your skin is that thin, in my estimation, that's not somebody who belongs in the job.
So, I mean, it would be unreasonable to expect our local leaders, even well-intentioned, to never make a mistake, but there should be a platform for recourse. One of the examples that the current county executive has used often is the president and Congress, or the governor and the General Assembly. But local government is meant to be more compact. And Joe, you mentioned the mayor of Salisbury, Randy Taylor.
Yeah.
We've had him on the show several times.
Yeah.
He's at the city council meetings, right?
Yeah, and he doesn't have to be.
Yeah. But, I mean, what do you think his motivation is? Is it to be engaged? Or?
Well, I think engagement's a part of it. I think, obviously, you want the executive branch in there to not only know what the legislative branch is doing, but also to report, to provide feedback, to collaborate. Because, as you said, local government is not... Yes, there are separate branches of government, obviously, but they are much more intertwined on a daily basis. They have to be.
I mean, it's unreasonable to think that Donald Trump's going to be able to sit in on Congress. But at the same time, that does not mean that at a local level, whether you're the town of Sharptown or the city of Salisbury or Wycomico County, that there can't be much more collaboration. We would stay out of more of these situations. And to be honest with you, the county council got us in this one, but the county executive has gotten us into a couple other of these debacles as well.
And again, theoretically, she's only 50 feet away.
Yeah, and she could be there. Well, she most certainly has popped in other times, and one of the things I brought up at the January meeting was this second bite at the apple for the liquor bills, and really what I want to talk about in the third segment is this is an example of we had legislation introduced for support for a liquor bill, and at the same time, public hearings, county council voted it down, and I want to talk a little bit about how the county executive continued to work for that, again, based on the donor.
Sure.
So stay with us. When we come back, we're going to take a look back at the liquor bills from January 2025 and just how that process mirrors the process we're in now. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Open Agenda. I'm your host, Joe White. Gentlemen, thanks for sticking around for the last segment. So, I talked about the liquor bills at the end of the last segment. These liquor bills actually started in 2023. They were sent up to Annapolis and sent back for local support. The task force was drawn up, and at the end of the day, the task force decided that they would allow restaurants, small business owners, this is a good thing, to purchase directly from wholesalers. The dispensary still stays, but we saw back in September the county executive, despite this win, and I think she deserves a lot of credit for helping to get that going, but despite that, her next three priorities were, again, liquor bills. And so, these came back up in work sessions in December and public hearings in January. I'm going to play a little footage that actually talks about the one liquor bill in particular that is for auditing from the state, the liquor dispensary, despite the fact in the work session the year before, there was no issues with the dispensary.
One of the first drafts that came out, it was printed in there that you were requesting that a forensic audit be done on the liquor dispensary. Any evidence of any wrongdoing, crimes going on?
We didn't have any evidence of that. Again, that's why that word was stricken from the final report.
All right, so gentlemen, I mean, you've attended many of these meetings. I mean, there was not support from the county council to support these liquor bills. The county executive's reply was, well, if you don't support them, I'll just get the comptroller myself. And at the January, the second meeting in January, I actually got up to the podium and I actually spoke about how, like, we've already had the local debate on this and we've decided, at least for a year, and there was a circumvention of the process.
I think when the task force met and the stakeholders were involved, it seems that there are a couple of concerns. We had talked about those last meeting.
We
One of the-
didn't get to see that because there were no minutes taken, so we had
Right.
no idea.
The stakeholders of the GSC recommended that we did this. So if we don't want to go forward with the audit, which I think is a better way to go, I will call the comptroller, and per the law, they can come in.
It's come to my attention that our newly appointed delegate in Annapolis is still working to circumvent some of that. I don't understand how anyone would ever think that that is a separation of power or good for transparency. It is the exact opposite of that.
Julie Giordano, County Executive. I just had two comments to make really quickly. I wanted to clarify something that Mr. White just brought up. So nothing was circumvented from this council. A constituent called Delegate Beecham and asked him to put forward a statewide bill. Statewide bill does not require a public hearing here. He listened, he dropped the bill. Unfortunately, the legislature decided that it should be a local bill, and I believe that he called several of you to see if there was consensus to move forward, and you told him no. So therefore, he has pulled the bill.
I think this whole discussion about the audit only came as a result of a way to tear down the dispensary system. After the task force, which I sat on, we decided that we were not going to get rid of this system. But it looks like a way to circumvent the system.
The executive spoke on her executive exclusive recently about the liquor legislation passed last year and how she was able to open the door and that she was still working on a couple of different angles because Wacomico County has an antiquated and broken system. She stated that she continues to hear from her constituents that they are unhappy with the liquor system in the county, and she was still trying to make it efficient if we are still going to have a dispensary system. Well, the council members have constituents too, and they are reacting to the voices of their constituents. I would bet that the council's constituents voicing opposition to the proposed liquor legislations outnumber the voices asking for changes, although they may not outnumber the campaign contributions made to the executive.
Yeah, again, I find it ironic, though, that for a county executive who is still 2 months behind on getting us the financial audit of last year's budget, that she has this fetish for going to Annapolis and getting the comptroller to come down here to examine the liquor dispensary. Seems odd.
So, yeah, I mean, you're talking about the fiscal year 2024, which
Right.
closed 8 months ago, right?
Yeah. Oh, I apologize. So technically 10 months late.
Yeah.
But
So-
the issue, I think, is bigger that she was attempting to go around the legislative body. And how many times have we heard the county executive, admonish the council that you are just a legislative body? Well, they are, and they have a very specific function. She did her best to ensure that they could not function as the legislative body by going directly to Annapolis.
Well, Mike, I mean, Joe brought this up earlier. Again, campaign donor is coming into view here. I mean, there are folks who are closely tied to the county executive who would benefit from this.
I'm starting to see a connection here between campaign donors and the legislative agenda for the county executive.
How about you, Joe? You
Well,
see a connection?
I think you could make a reasonable argument that people like Mike Brazard, Alex Scott, folks like that, they certainly have a magnified voice compared to Joe Public. And I would say that money is probably a big part of that difference.
I mean, I don't even think it's political ideology because
no.
Mike and I are both very conservative Republicans, which is, the party.
Supposedly, so is the county executive.
Well,
I think not.
Yeah, and honestly, you're not. You have a different political take. And as we have sat around the table on and off camera, we've debated many times national policy, although we don't cover that on this show, state policy, city policy. Not everything comes down to being a Republican or a Democrat.
Actually,
right?
locally, it often doesn't.
Should it be taken out? I mean, when you walk in, as I do as a Republican, into a county council meeting, when you look up there, do you often find yourself agreeing with both or either side or disagreeing with your own party?
Well, to the point that Joe was starting to make, I don't think on the local level that party affiliation has very much to do with anything. Look, I'm a lifelong Republican. I voted for one Democrat in my life, and that was Henry Wade for Dallas County District Attorney of Roe versus Wade, that most people are familiar with. But on the local level, even though Joe Venosa and I were kind of on opposite ends of the political spectrum, and yet we have found an enormous amount of overlap, a middle ground where we agree on many things. And so it has nothing to do with our parties. It has to do with our concern for the health of our community. And we both have a vested interest in that.
And also because it's tied into, I think, the functionality of a compact government. Right? Because you have to work more intimately. It actually makes those shared concerns theoretically, more substantive.
I think there was a time when being a conservative meant for sure that you were in for small government. Those aren't the realities today.
Barry
right?
Goldwater's been dead a long time.
Yeah.
And so
but small compact government
would
would serve our local community.
Well, and again, I think what a lot of people realistically, whether they say big government, small government, efficient government, medium government, they tend to want it to work.
Well, so let's talk about the work. Fiscal year 2024 budget the audit, is still not out. Our goal is, for the show, is to get people to be active in the community, and we're coming into budget season.
People are going to start to notice those things when the budget season really, happens.
And at this point, it's that budget audit from last fiscal year, it's 2 months delinquent at this point. 2 months.
And we don't know when it's going to come out because we've asked. We have asked our elected officials when it's going to come out, but
we're awaiting additional information from what I understand from the finance department. Are they simply not being cooperative? Are they intentionally withholding this information? But how do we look ahead when we don't know where we've been?
Well, and so the budget for fiscal year 2026, which would start July 1st, is due to the county council on April 15th. Okay, that is roughly 60 days away, and in that period of time, there also has to be revenue projections done. Joe and I were joking, it's like you're all dressed up on a Friday night. You don't know how much money's in your bank account. You don't know how much money you're going to make next week. And you're supposed to decide if you're going to go out and have a hamburger or a steak. How are you going to do it?
I don't know, but you are dressed rather nice, I have to say.
So are you. I think
the face helps, but I appreciate it.
I tell you, I think always taking a chance to just up your professionalism is always good, right?
A little bit.
Well, gentlemen, we are going to continue our mission to get more people involved in their government, not necessarily to follow our dogma, but also, to cover the budget process, which is right around the corner, correct?
I was harping on dogma with dog, given the nature of it.
Well.
You missed a good dad joke
It
there.
was, but it was very unintentional, so.
Yeah.
Well, I do hope people will pay attention. It's very important to exercise your right to vote. But if you're going to vote, you also have an obligation, and that obligation is to make a reasonable effort to be as informed as you can. We hope that this show is helping the public, be informed. But pay attention. Don't fact check this. Please feel free to fact check us. Look at other media outlets. I won't mention any in particular, and see what the difference is, and see who the adults in the room ultimately are going to be.
Well, the public's going to have a chance the next few months to really see just how their government can serve them, trying to get through the budget season and ultimately do the best they can for the taxpayers. So, well, thanks for joining us for this episode of Open Agenda. We'll be back next week with another new episode.
I know what I'm doing, man.